10,000 Gecs by 100 Gecs. This is the St. Louis, Missouri outfit's second studio album, released March 17th via Atlantic Records. 10,000 Gecs consists of 10 tracks, clocks in at around 27 minutes, and is the much anticipated to 2019's 1,000 Gecs, Sam. They like their multiples of 10.
I was going to say, do they only do things in multiples of 10? Like if I go back and look at that first album, is it also 10 tracks?
It's one Gec. One Gec.
A singular Gec.
One singular Gec. B-sides are negative 10s.
How do you even begin to...
100 Gecs are when the intrusive thoughts win.
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
End of review, 5 stars.
No, elaborate, please, please.
So, man, as someone who's not like, I'm not 100% in tune with like all of the Gec lore and all of these different things. I only really got into the band when they remixed that last record. Was following along for the singles for this record, but this is really the first time even spending a full 26 minutes with this artist. And I know heading into it that I just wanted one thing, because it was what I had gathered just from the exposure that I had gotten to this band prior, which was I just wanted to hear something really fucking weird.
Oh, okay.
And I definitely get that on 10,000 Gecs. And what I mean by, letting the intrusive thoughts win, it's because 100 Gecs operates on multiple planes, but the main one is, how can we take this and just really make it weird and silly and stupid, but also still somehow like very grounded and cohesive in a certain way. And they operate magnificently in that regard, in the sense that it's like, no other band that you listen to this year, at least a lot of the ones we cover on this show, are ever going to get this fucking strange. And like the impressive thing about 100 Gecs is they do keep it reeled in to a certain degree where like I said, it's still cohesive. And even though it's the strangest collection of songs that you'll really listen to, at least this week, it sounds great. And I think that's one of the best compliments that I can pay this band, is like 100 Gecs is 1,000%, or 100 Gecs is 1,000%. This album, 10,000 Gecs, is 100% in its own lane, 10,000% in its own lane. And like, I just like watching this band, I guess, just function in that way.
I think I understand sort of the context you're providing here, which is to say that,
and you might have heard a clip here, but like very much bedroom hyper pop infusion of metal and new metal and a bunch of weird shit that ska on this record, a lot of that, actually, surprisingly. And that's I guess just what I wanted to emphasize there when I say that this band is strange. It's not because they're a rock band and they make rock music. It's because they're a rock band, but not at all.
It's almost like, from any other perspective, just looking at this, everything is weird. But when you put it under the umbrella of 100 Gecs, it somehow makes sense, right? So playing this out of context, it's like, what the fuck am I listening to? But then explaining that, oh, it's 100 Gecs, provides all the context necessary to sort of like understand why it sounds the way it does. This is unlike anything else we talk about, which is peculiar to me in a sense, because it does still really feel like 100 Gecs is just tapping into like a certain era of this scene that most bands that we touch aren't, and we touch a lot of bands within the scene. But what's maybe the most interesting of 100 Gecs is that they kind of do it on a bigger stage than just about every other band. So it's weird the amount of success that they've had as an artist for what I would think is a significantly like there's less potential for this to take off, but somehow for that reason it took off.
Right. And to give you like kind of an idea of that bigger stage, have a feature on a Skrillex song, have opened for My Chemical Romance last year when that tour finally happened, that worldwide tour. That's the type of stage we're talking. Like, they are putting this music out to a fairly big audience, and one that keeps growing.
Right. And they're doing it via the music that you would think has like the least likeliness for success. So it's such a like, it's almost like they're their own worst enemy, but because of it, they've succeeded beyond all imagination.
It endears them to everyone somehow.
Yeah, that too.
And I think, like, you know, we're a small sample size, but I think that really does you nail the hand with the mallet on that one. I'm trying to think of
I've crushed the hand with the mallet.
Yeah.
Yes, precisely.
Trying to think of good puns for this band, but like I don't think that like going into this band looking for like going into this album, this band, experiencing this band, I don't think my mindset is much different from probably yours and probably a lot of people that consume this artist, where I don't know, music can get very stale at times and very boring, and the prospect of having a band that shows complete disregard for those types of traditions and songwriting and things like that is thrilling.
Throw the playbook out, right? So here's the thing with 100 Gecs is that there's a version of this band that I find absolutely fucking perfect, and it's the one that you described as sort of like bedroom hyperpop, right? It's like this fucking computer-generated instrumentals, this super auto-tuned vocals.
Lots of layering in the production, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like these crazy beat drops, and like it turns 100 Gecs into like just like a never-ending hype machine, and
vocals doused in auto-tune at times.
Mm-hmm. So songs like Dumbest Girl Alive and Me, Me, Me are like the quintessential examples of exactly what I want from 100 Gecs, right? Like I adore this style of the band, but they are so all over the place that,
for better and for worse.
Yeah, precisely, because it's like you said earlier, it's like ska makes a strong appearance on this record, and sometimes a lot of like the styles and sounds are sort of integrated within one another, so it's like it's not just individual songs, but it's like one song sort of incorporates multiple styles from the band, and it's like I'll find myself like really enjoying certain aspects of the songs, but then less so different aspects of the songs. Like it's a very chaotic experience listening to this record. I think one of the craziest things about 100 Gecs is that this band is so ridiculous at all times that like ska is almost like a palate cleanser.
It's so strange,
and the capability to turn ska into a palate cleanser is something that I think is unrivaled from any other band I've ever listened to.
An interesting thing, especially within the context of the album, those two ska songs, is like they're surprising for the first 3 seconds you hear that the band has transitioned into that sound, and then suddenly you just like go with it. And even if it's not a genre that you really like, I'll speak for both of us. I hate ska, so I know.
I don't hate ska.
Sam hates
let me
ska.
Don't speak for me in this instance.
For Sam,
it may
Ska
not
Tune
be
Network completely valid.
It's not my
every other ska act terrible.
It's not my favorite genre. It probably lands pretty low if I were to name off the things I liked most. But I don't dislike it like on principle, right? Like I'm always open to like
I'm not
ska being fine. I think that 100 Gecs does a lot of legwork by somehow making ska even sillier than it usually is. So something like Frog on the Floor, if that's how you're presenting ska to me, I'm sort of significantly more open to it because it's almost like a self-awareness that like there is an inherent silliness to this style of music.
It's like, man, at times this
band is like inherent fun to it.
Sometimes it feels like you're watching, like sometimes we've transitioned from listening to a song to just experiencing like a bit in a Disney Channel show that just has a ska song, and like a Frog on the Floor or something I could envision just being a fucking Phineas and Ferb episode or some shit. And like you just you really do just learn to go with the flow with this
When
band.
everything's out of left field, nothing's out of left field.
Exactly,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? So it's like suddenly the fact that this whole record is bizarre is just par for the course for this band.
What I will say is that it does, there are elements of this band's sound, and I'll point out the other ska song on here as one of those elements that, like certain elements rear their head in a really frustrating way. And I think that the way that maybe that
Is the
sort of
frustration that
genre-
you don't want them or that you think they're out of place here?
I don't know. So it's, I guess this frustration is hard to explain, but like, I really like sometimes I wish I could protect this band from themselves. Cause like the first 35 seconds of I Got My Tooth Removed are maybe the best 35 seconds on this album. And then the rest of that song happens, and it's arguably the absolute worst time you'll have with the rest of the record. Like those ensuing 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
I understand your thought process, but part of me is almost like, I look at this band and I'm like, if you were to infringe on their artistic expression in any way, you almost ruin the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Which is why it's actually...
So it's almost like you need this band to miss as hard as they hit.
Right. It's really challenging to critique this particular band, because you're right. Like, I don't want to put any... I don't want to handcuff their creativity ever, and I have no right to do it anyway. I'm just here consuming
It's like
this stuff.
it's almost like if I have to get 2 minutes if I got my tooth removed that I'm not in love with, at least I've got something as insane as Doritos and Fritos to like temper it with.
But I do think a critique that I can bring up, and it might be the fault of like personal preference. We heard the two best songs on this album pretty much a year before this record even came out.
Slow down. Absolutely fucking slow down. What are the two best songs on this record?
Me, which came out in 2021. It's actually been, it might have been around longer. It's been floating around for a hot minute now.
And?
Doritos and Fritos.
But you're wrong. Because
I
Dumbest
know
Girl Alive is
incredible.
maybe one of the best songs I've heard all year.
But with the idea that this is a 27-minute record, it's being floated to you as an album, and I know that this is a stupid critique to get into with this particular band, but like, really, we're getting only so much new material, and we've already heard the best of it. And as a reviewer, for me personally, like something like that it can definitely be a little off-putting.
I disagree with the critique that 27 minutes hinders this album. I think something like this is best taken in small doses.
No, I
think 45 minutes of 100 Gecs is the most insane thing anyone's ever said out loud.
I'm asking for it, Sam. I want it.
There is I remain that there was a lot of self-awareness within this band.
I guess what I'm more trying to get to is like, I'm not trying to say like I want a particular version of this band and only that, but like realistically, I don't know. There's an argument that Doritos and Fritos and Me shouldn't have been on this album, and it makes it a worse album.
But they are on this album.
But like,
this is a strange hypothetical that doesn't actually exist.
I should have probably worked out the argument better in my head, but like, I know someone out there might agree with some of the points I'm struggling to make here.
You're trying to say that you think the strongest elements of this album are songs that you've already had the pleasure of listening to for the course of like over a year.
Yeah, but I'm not
articulating it as well as you want to.
You make it sound like I'm mad I've heard the singles prior to the album. It's not that. It's more like the elements that make this album special have already been available to everyone for a very long time. And I'm not saying that like the singles massively overshadow the rest of the material on here.
I kind of feel like you are saying that a little bit, though. Maybe massively is unnecessary, but overshadowing it is fair.
But I can't say massively because you're right. Like a song like "Dumbest Girl Alive" then appears and it's incredible.
Love "Dumbest Girl Alive" and 757 for me are fucking perfect. Like that 1-2 punch in the beginning. But
Hollywood Baby at the top is really great too. Another single, but it's only been out for like a week and a half. And
right. I think I find other aspects of songs that I don't enjoy their style as much to have still other things I love. Like lyrically, this album is also very silly. And
It's
I think the
actually a
most wanted
little-
person in the United States might be the perfect example of that.
So I think that that's a good example of
That and I got my tooth removed,
lyrically-
which is also fucking just crazy as like conceptually an idea for like a song.
a fascinating idea for a song, right? I think that the for all the shit I might talk about, I got my tooth removed. I think the most wanted person in the United States might actually not be my favorite song on this record, and I think part of the reason why is it actually sheds some light on what I think at times can be some like a glaring lyrical shortcoming. But it's weird because I don't think that this band is bad lyrically. I think they have a lot of great examples, and a lot of it does stem from being really silly. Like take Doritos and Fritos, that fucking Danny DeVito line, like I almost end up on the floor belly laughing every time I hear it. But like the issue with the song, like The Most Wanted Person in the United States, is it really highlights, and it sucks trying to do a serious review of this band
Because
but it
it's
really
almost like
highlights-
because the idea of taking 100 Gecs seriously is almost like you've already lost the battle before you've even started, right?
And that's not what I want to do either. Like I'm not waging war against this band. I really like them. I
Right,
really
but
enjoy
if
this
we're
experience.
attempting to have a critical discussion about a band who drops a song called like the fucking frog on the floor, right?
Me.
It's like right, you've already set yourself up for failure.
So anyway, the last point I want to make there is just like, so a song like that can be elevated, but it isn't, because you have like lyrics where it's like matching money with funny, and it's like just like lyrically, it's a really poor example of this band's capabilities, where I think that they do shine lyrically at many other points throughout this record. So it's weird where like you talked earlier about crashing and burning on Risks. Some of that crash and burn feels so preventable at times, because it's not really even just like, you know, this song's really out there sonically, or this song's really out there from a subject matter perspective. Like I mean, I don't even think they don't hit when they try that stuff. It's like, it's when this band, it's when this band takes their foot off the gas that they fuck themselves at times. And that's what keeps this record from being, that's what keeps this band from being the greatest of all time. It's a stupid discussion to get into, but like there's a 100 Gecs that is, music has never been more perfectly achieved. Like this is the definition of music. It's 100 Gecs. And then the worst example of music is also 100 Gecs at times. And it's so funny.
That is such an interesting perspective on
Right.
this. What would you score it then?
I think this is a 3 for me. I think that like it's, I don't know, because it's not even, I could give this a 1 and tell you it's the greatest album of the year as well. Like that's how little any of these critiques or points matter that we try to make here. Because like you said, we've already lost the battle.
You're saying 100 Gecs is essentially
Undefinable almost.
right,
Or at least 10,000 Gecs.
uncriticizable.
I'm not saying that. What I am saying is it is super challenging. It's as challenging as it gets. Being a music critic.
I
and
understand
tackling
what
an
you're
album
saying
like
though.
this
Is
one.
you're trying to give like your perspective on like a glass of Pepsi, and everybody else at the table is just like shut up and drink it. like like nobody cares, bro. It's Pepsi. Like
Right.
it fucking tastes good. Sure, it's not good for you. Who fucking like whatever.
Right.
Like I don't want to hear 45 minutes on your fucking. On soda, like,
But, like,
that's kind of it's like let me give another example. It's like 100 Gecs are like a fucking Pop-Tart, right? It's like I eat it and I really like it, and it's not filling, but I want more because it tastes good. And ultimately, like it's like there's not a lot of nutrients to be gained here.
They're empty calories.
But fucking
right?
Pop-Tarts are good, so who really gives a shit? It's like I don't want to overthink it. I just want to fucking eat a Pop-Tart and move on.
Right, and it's important to notate too that like you're not just eating. I hate this review. You're not just eating that Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
Because like it's fun. You're eating it because like you can only get a Pop-Tart from a Pop-Tart, right? And if you have that sweet tooth and you have a craving for that Pop-Tart, you can only go to fucking poptart.com and load your card up and have it shipped out to your house.
All
And
right, that's enough out of you.
Yeah.
This is a soft 3 for me
head's gonna
because
explode.
I think that this album really is like what keeps this album afloat are like 4 of the catchiest, craziest fucking good songs you've ever heard. And they more than make up the difference for like 5 or 6 that I'm less enthusiastic about.
If this band wanted to put out an 8-minute collection of 4 songs and call it an album, it could have gone down as the greatest record in the history of humankind. But like, they don't. They also have some really weird hits and misses on there. But like, as far as like, you know, we talk about giving this a 3, a soft 3, whatever. It also has some of what I think are, at least collected into an album, what I will say, like some of the best songs I've heard this year.
I enjoyed it more than I didn't. And that really sums up 100 Gecs.